So would everyone stand for a moment of silence and pledge allegiance?
I'll do it now. This way.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, there he is. We'll let you get settled for a second here. I'm going to go ahead and call the roll on him.
Sure. Tony Cinto?
Here.
Mark Leclerc?
Here.
Lori Rosasco Schwartz?
Here.
Matt Karen?
Here.
Anne Marie Evangelista?
Here.
Lisa Valente?
Here.
John Cantavio?
Here.
And Mary Beth Thornton.
Okay, we only have one item of business tonight, and that's our hearing schedule. We'll go through these in order as they're presented on the sheet. You'll notice on the sheet the page numbers have been provided to you both on the sheet that you were handed out tonight and then in the book. So in the first column, again, first one is on page 2. In the book, it's on page 55, so everybody can follow along. Tonight is a informational. The voting session of the Finance Committee takes place later, so this is purely information. So with no point in delaying this any further, let's get started. So we're starting with the Board of Assessment Appeals. That's page 2 of the sheet, page 55 in the book. Good, how are you doing? Questions from the committee? Do you want to make a short statement about anything that's new in the budget?
Good evening. Our committee is right now comprised of 2 members, and we have 2 new appointees, so we've got 4 now on the committee. But also, no one has been through any training in the last 2 to 3 years, and I think we're going to need that to be up to speed and fulfill our obligations properly. So I would suggest perhaps a budget reduction along the lines of 50% of what the budget was the prior year. So it would be a couple $100 more for training, which I think we may need. And we could also run into expenses. We've had a relatively light load the last few years, which could change. You never know when that's going to happen. There's more demand, and then our per diem costs go up for the administrative help we have during those hearings.
The previous chairman had moved. He was an attorney who usually had the most experience. So Jeff has been on for a year. So and the other members in 10, they got 2 new members. So none of them have really been through the training or anything. So it's just like we understand they only expended X amount the previous year, and just saying maybe a 50% cut. Give them a little leeway. It's still a healthy.
Okay, questions from the committee? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. How many would need the training? All 4?
Yes.
All 4 would need the training.
It's a single class once a year they usually hold, and maybe in a couple places, so.
Try to find one nearby.
It's not that expensive, but there is, the drive, they might have to drive up past the Hartford area, or, depends where they hold it, and, so that might be, I'm sure there'd be a little light if all 4 of them would do it in the same year.
Do you know how much it is per person? I know.
I think it runs maybe about 75 person.
Okay. Thank you.
Approximately,
Is that something that perhaps you could do a train the trainer for us, just because of the situation that we're in this year with the budget, with the pretty deep cuts from the state, or potential cuts from the state? Every department's looking to I guess give a little to help funding that deficit. So is there something that you could do to send perhaps 2 of those folks to the training, and then have them train the other 2, and then at some point
I'll leave it. I want to speak for
Sure.
the board.
I have no objection to that.
Okay.
We just again, this is subject to the demand, that, how many people want an appeal, and so we're a little
Yeah.
at the
You don't know
mercy
how
of
many
what's going
customers
on.
you get.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
understood.
To the chair. Are you anticipating many more appeals this year?
There's appeals every year. Yeah, I'm not on the board, I'm the assessor. I mean, they always get,
It's unpredictable, really, because you don't know.
You guys don't know.
Right.
Typically, if the times get tougher, you can anticipate more people appealing, trying to lower their taxes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Tax assessor?
Do you have any questions, or do you want me to?
Just a quick statement, if you would.
The only thing I had, I understand what's going on with the budget, so I know what's going on with the state. Hopefully it won't turn out as bad as currently forecast, we don't know.
Right.
The only thing I had, because I wasn't obviously there when they made their cuts at the Board of Finance, the audits, that's a money-moving thing, but I can deal with that. The only thing I had an objection possibly to is on the professional conferences where they said reduce training for one person. We actually have 4 certified persons in the office, all with continuing ed requirements. So I could deal with like a 25% cut, which is still fairly healthy, which would actually be a cut for one person. But everybody has a continuing ed requirement. A lot of the other departments don't have that because of their certification. And it's a good thing. We force it. There's 2 levels of certification, but the requirements are the same in terms of hours. And that's good that my whole full-time staff is certified. They all have a requirement, so we could get away with. Anyway, I don't think they knew that when they cut that. That's why I just wanted to point that out.
Any question? Through the chair.
Oh, please.
Would it be helpful, the Board of Finance went through and did a line item cut for each of the departments, so for everybody that's here tonight. It's certainly not that those, the total department number on the Board of Finance vote is really what we're working with, but it certainly doesn't mean that you don't have the option or the liberty of suggesting movements among the lines to fund for those things that you think you really need, and perhaps maybe, reallocate some of those dollars to a different line, and we certainly could talk about that.
All right, well, I'm just saying, when I look through all the budgets in here and see the different cuts, and if you look at specifically all the departments and how they cut, say, education, it varies from department to department. Some just got 3.5% cuts, and, this was cut in half. And I'm saying the note next to there is it's cutting training for one person. Now, in another department, I noticed they did the same thing. I really think there only are 2 people there. Okay, they made a 50% cut. So I'm just saying we have 4 certified people who all have to attend training. So if you want to cut for one person, that would really be 25%, which is still more than 3.5 and, some of the other ones. But I understand the situation. That's my point.
I mean, if you have a suggestion, we appreciate your working with us to try to determine if there's a better allocation of the line items, because just the Board of Finance went through to cut on a line item by line item basis, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we have to finally approve. It's the total dollars per department that we really is our starting point, and then what you do with those, we'd have to get into the final budget vote, but we certainly are, very open to moving those around. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Oh, Dawn, did you have another question?
I just had one, excuse
sorry.
me, through the chair, that's okay. Under your service fees contractual, are those really something you have wiggle room with, or not? Some of them we do, some departments don't.
No, we have a contract, the tax collector and I both have a contract with the admin system on our side and the collection system are tied, both with a certain vendor, that's a set price. Vision appraisal is the other one, that's a set price. There is a little bit, like about 500, 750, something for like additional programming. We always have like a little fee here or there with Vision and them, so that really is not, there's no leeway on those contracts.
Okay, thank
I
you.
was gonna bring that
Yeah. Thank you.
up, but, okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we have one last question.
Not some questions.
Oh,
If you have any, if you think of anything,
Okay.
let Maria know, and then she can let us know. If
Yeah.
you want to, like Lori said, you wanted to change B to A to B, whatever. Let her know.
Yeah, okay.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nature Commission,
Right.
it's page 1. This page, oh, there it is. This one here. Building official,
I'm sorry, the Board of Finance left that, the Nature Commission number as it was.
oh, it did, okay.
Yeah, just so
All
you
right.
were there.
Is Mr. Dunn here? Oh, please.
Thank you.
You have a short statement?
I do. I printed out some budget department adjustments and reductions that I got quite creative in how to cut the department budget.
Oh, good.
First of all, we have a car that's 2000. It's in the shop more than it's on the road. But our car payment, the car loan is actually expired June 30th. So I put in for a new car, and the difference between the loan payment of the old car and the new car, I was able to cut the budget so it would be a zero net increase to get the replacement car. We're cutting some various communications, professional development, and all the cuts that I made amounted to a 10%, other than salaries, a 10% reduction of the operating costs of the department. And some of the revenue enhancements we came up with, the past couple of years, all the banks are requiring municipal searches. And some of these people take a permit out in the 70s, take a $20 permit out, and for us to have to close out these permits, it's a lot of time. We have to go and research what codes were in effect in that time and do all this paperwork. So Greenwich and a couple other towns basically do charge a $150 fee, basically for administrative fee, to research old permits and to be able to close them out. Now, if there's violations that need additional permits, they will have to do that, but this will be great. And if we just use the numbers that we had this past year, and we were charging that $150, we would have generated another $60,000 in revenue for the department.
Wow.
And it doesn't hurt the mom and pop or the small business or anybody that's coming in for a normal permit. These were just, the permit fees have risen in the last 40 years. And after talking to the state building inspector, he said, listen, if you can just close these permits out as is, technically they expire in 180 days, but, you get 3 separate owners since the original permit was taken out. Another thing we came up with is reinspection fees. There's a lot of times where we'll go out to do an inspection and they're not ready, or they just blatantly fail. If it's 1 or 2 things, they have to fix some fire blocking, we're not going to fail them. We'll say we'll check it when we do the installation. But once again, if there was a $25 reinspection fee, last year we had 612, it would have generated another $15,300. The demolition permit fee, the minimum fee that we had was way too low, and we just put it in line with some of the other permit fees. We'll have to go to the board and ask for approval to institute these new fees. One of the other things is we have some upcoming major projects. The Henkel project on Trefoil Drive, we're going to be anticipating about $250,000 in permit fees for this year. We have the community center, which we're going to have to do all the inspections, but we can't charge the town, so our department won't see any money from that project. The mall expansion is coming up, and we're anticipating the Oakview Drive apartments and community center. if that goes through, it looks like it's gonna, we're anticipating over $100,000 in permit fees.
Can I just ask you a question while
Sure.
we're talking about? So were there any large permit fees this year that would offset that? So you're adding on for these additional large
No.
ticket items?
Last year, we had the Cancer Center on Park Avenue, which was an enormous project. Things have slowed up beginning of this year, but with Oakview and possibly with Henkel's and with Oakview, if we can at least get their foundation permits in the ground, we should be able to hit our number for this year. So we're not going to have a shortfall for our anticipated budget this year.
So you're expecting to stay at run rate for
Correct.
this year, next year, plus these additional incremental, the 250 and the 100 for Oakview?
Exactly. Well, the Oakview is going to, half of it will be this year with the foundations, and the structure and everything will be toward the next budget, because I don't think they'll have building permits until after July. I went through the whole budget trying to find anything else that we could cut, and there really is no other place. When Graham Bissett, building official before me, retired, it took us over 6 months to find a replacement for him, which was a real struggle. And the inspector that we hire now is great. He's quickly become an asset to the town. He really knows his stuff. And, you know, I was, like I say, I was trying to come up with a combination of revenue enhancements and reductions. And I'm hoping you'll restore it to the first selectmen's budget, because with my cuts, we can make that. And the 3% cut, the only place I can cut it is out of salary, and I just have no way to do that.
Other members of Finance Committee?
This is great, thank you for
You're
for
welcome.
doing that, that's
Thank you
really
for
very
doing this.
helpful.
Thanks for your time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Mr. McCarthy, you're up.
There's only $2,000 and they left it to do finance and
Do you having a short opening statement?
I do. I think we put in a budget, original budget that I think was relatively flat. If you look at the recreation and parks together, we were a little reduction in budget in recreation overall, and an increase in parks. Again, same as the others have said, with a little bit of flexibility on how the decreases that were proposed by the Finance Board are implemented. I think we can certainly work with those. We did project some changes and can work with those items. I think we have a couple of expense areas that we need to be wary of. We're probably the only department that's still impacted by an increase in minimum wage because of all the seasonal employees that we have. So there is another minimum wage increase coming that will impact some of our low-end employees. And the other item that I think is not necessarily addressed in this budget, but is something that we are keeping a close eye on, is when the extension of the rails to trails that runs from Twin Brooks down to Quarry Road becomes a reality. We're starting construction on that presently. That we'll need to be looking at the impact of that, both in our with our parks maintenance as well as our park rangers. There's that's a lot of area to cover. So we are monitoring that, but I would be decreases in those areas. We did not specifically put any increases in those areas. I would be very wary of decreases in those areas for those reasons. The other item, and I'm not quite sure how to address it, but it is reflected in this budget just about a week before, a couple of days before the Board of Finance voted on this budget. They had a conversation with us as well as with the Parks Commission about incorporating some of the special agency accounts into the budget. And literally that was done on pretty short notice. So that is carried in this budget. I will say the big item that is impacted here is in the recreation programs account. We've got $280,000 worth of expenses that were being run, both revenues and expenses that were being run through the special agency account. So you see that really big number there. And again, that was the Board of Finance urging us to change the way that we manage that accounting and run that through the general fund. So again, we can talk about that. There are some smaller impacts in some of the other areas, and some of the parks account, park permits and things like that that we'll be addressing. And I think the final item here is that we've had some conversation, general conversation, with regard to attacking the revenue side of this budget from the park standpoint. And we will be, staff has been preparing some information for the Parks Commission, so they may at least consider a revenue enhancement package for the Parks and Recreation Department. I hesitate to include that in the budget because until it goes through the Parks Commission, it goes through the council for approval. I wouldn't want to necessarily rely on that, but the town has a number of services and facilities that are available to the public at no cost to the user, and that is somewhat unusual. So we think that with some reasonable user fees, and certainly implementing things like guest fees at the pool, so that when people want to bring guests to the pool, there's either passes or fees associated with that. That is something the town will need to look at as you look at the challenges that both the town budget and the state budget have put in front of you.
So, Chair, have you put together a schedule of what those fees would bring to your department?
Well, it's because I'm not sure what the appetite is going to be for those fees, but I think honestly a recreation, if you will, recreation membership fee in which you got your pool passes for your family, a couple of first couple of park emblems included, access to all of the to being able to make reservations, to register for programs on a priority basis. You could conservatively bring in a couple $100,000 in that type of a system.
Dawn and then Tony.
Go ahead, Tony wants.
Okay.
Stuart, how will letting this affect like the lifeguard and stuff for the summer, the pools that everybody goes to the pools, like your part-time help? The decreases here. I don't believe it'll impact the lifeguards. I think we would. I think we may look at some of our open programs in the wintertime. We have any number of sort of open gym programs, and we'll have to take a good look at that. We've been collecting a lot of data this year on where those facilities are more heavily used. So that would be an impact. We obviously would be freezing wages for all the seasonal staff, so. Again, the priorities here. The priority is the first thing. When it was suggested that we had to look at big cuts, somebody says, "Well, you just close one of the pools." I don't think that's what the community is looking for, and we're not going to do that. That's not going to be reaction. That's not going to be my reaction if somebody tells me differently. But I think keeping the pools open is a priority. Can we cut back an hour here and there? Can we cut back a week on the opening of one of the pools? Those are the types of things we're looking at around the fringes of those. But no, I don't anticipate. Our priority is to keep the pools open, and our absolute promise is that they're going to be safely staffed.
Thanks.
Along those lines, Stuart, the
Sorry, go ahead.
salaries, sorry.
That's okay, go ahead, go ahead.
All right, aquatic salaries, seasonal temp, that was a slight increase, was that wages?
Yeah, that was, again, that is subject to, there's, some people are at minimum wage, so
Okay.
it was a little bump there.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily adding anybody. Okay, sorry, no.
No, that's okay. Through the chair, I have a question. I know that we're thinking of charging residents for membership, even though we're already have these services for free. One
Which
option,
is the challenge.
Right. One option, I don't know if this is on the table, is that some of the people who don't live in town are able to park and use our facilities free of charge. Is there any notion that maybe this shouldn't be, and maybe we should start charging them a membership or a fee of some sort?
Well, I
So
mentioned-
that might be another.
I mentioned things like, pool pass. We have a series of passes that we give out of our office, pool passes. So if your in-laws come into town and want to take the kids to the pool, there's a pass for that. And if if your sister's in town, there's a pass for that. And there's general guest passes. And that's all fine, but we think that it ought to be in a package and you don't pay for it. That's part of what you do. The general use of the parks is a much more difficult scenario, because in order to really monitor that the way clearly some people would like you to monitor it, which is shut the gate, you have to have somebody there to shut the gate, and you have to have somebody. So if you look at beach communities that do this, which is you have a pass and you gotta have the pass to come in, well, that's fine, but they have somebody sitting there all day long during the season, figure out when it is, and so there is a real cost to monitoring that. I think our focus, our proposal from a staff standpoint that we'll be discussing with the commission would be more to try and monitor what people are doing in the facilities, much less so than who's coming in and out of them. So if we put fees associated with the use of the tennis courts as an example, which right now you come into my office and we'll give you a reservation and you go play tennis for free. Okay, well that's fine, but if we can still leave the tennis courts open, but if you want the benefit of having a reservation, you pay a little bit for it. Take your chances of going up there and getting a free court, that's fine, but if you want the reservation, you pay for it. So monitoring the activity in the parks, I think, is in the facilities is the direction. I think the cost associated with a real strict, given the size of the park system here, is I think it is cost prohibitive. I think you would spend more money than you possibly make up in fees to non-residents.
Especially Twin Brooks has so many ways to get in,
Yeah.
and I think that is, Twin Brooks has a lot, I have a lot of complaints saying, oh, these people are, parked here, and who are they, and, whatever, suspicious, they didn't have a sticker, and how many openings, it's tough, right? So I think that's great to.
I mean, if they don't have a sticker, they get a ticket.
And where does
period.
that, if they, how quick does the park ranger's ticket, and where does that revenue go? Does it go to the town, or does it go to the state?
Doesn't go to me. We collect it, but I believe
Goes
Maria
up
can
to
answer.
state.
It goes to the general fund, I would assume, right?
Good in the.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it may be in your account. I'll have
Stuart,
to
Yeah,
look.
but I don't draw.
You need
No,
parking
you
for
don't
that
draw
because
for
all the
it.
baseball
I'll
games
have to look at it.
from out of town.
Yeah.
For
Ticket
me, it's
won't.
impossible.
There are a couple of things that would, and Cynthia just mentioned. One is that unfortunately, we have as many exceptions to the rules as we have rules, because, for instance, if there's a baseball game going on, we don't know if the people from out of town are there because it's grandma watching the baseball game, or the other team is from, Shelton. So basically, we suspend, that's our advertising, but we basically don't. The Rangers don't go in the parks and start issuing tickets when there's scheduled activities in the park. So that's a huge chunk of the day. We generally don't hit lunchtime in the parks because we're trying to be somewhat friendly to the business community here. If somebody wants to go out and have a sandwich, they can use them. So again, we're trying to make the parks usable and welcoming. If you and at the same time control the use. So
I was just trying to divert a little of that cost off the residents who are already paying taxes to use these, and maybe find another way.
Understood.
Thank you.
So once you got parks and trees and.
Did you have any
Mr. Jakes is not here, right? 'Cause I think
No, he was, I was
Yeah.
told he
did, because
would
of
not be
budget
required, but I
changes.
can certainly
Yeah.
address any issues.
Was there any issues that were,
I-
anything for tree warden questions?
I would like one other question about the parks, and there's been a lot of
sorry.
discussion about this during the Board of Finance hearings and so forth. But the field usage fee schedule,
Mhm.
at one of the hearings I had asked if we could actually have a schedule of that and understand how that's worked into the revenue line. Is that
The current schedule?
the current schedule, and then whatever your proposal is to enhance that?
Right, well,
'Cause
the-
I know there's
the-
been, again, a lot
yeah.
of discussion around that item.
That proposal's not been created yet, so we're still working on that. Right now there is, and that is one of the areas that will get rolled into this budget, I think, once we define that. Right now it's fairly limited revenue that comes in for athletic fields because it's only for the rental of the fields to the outside organizations. So there's I think we talked about, $5,000 a year plus or minus that we bring in right now.
Mhm.
But that number, if we get into certainly some of the scenarios that have been talked about in which the Trumbull organizations would pay either through a per head or a per game or a per league basis, could generate some substantial revenue that could offset.
For the in-town organizations, the
Yeah, I think
suggestion
that-
is, I thought it was so focusing around the out-of-town organizations that are
Yeah.
using our fields that we'd like to.
There's very
have the
few
charges.
out-of-town organizations using the fields. I think one of the things that the Parks and Recreation Commission did a few years ago was they significantly increased, for instance, the fees for using the artificial turf fields. But as a result, no one really rents them. I mean, they're not an attractive rental option for outside organizations. So again, there's very limited. There's a men's soccer team and a couple of men's baseball teams that rent fields, but they're not like the youth organization where they're playing all the time. They come in, play 5 games or something, so there's not a lot of revenue associated with that. So again, we don't have a lot of non-resident use, so you have this balancing act where you like to make the money off of the non-residents. On the other hand, we're trying to keep the facilities available to the residents, so you can choose one, choose the other, or charge everybody.
Do we make it known that those fields are available for rental? I know I used to be the manager of a soccer team, and we
Yeah.
were always looking for fields and willing to pay a fee, and we're never really a lot available. So,
there aren't a lot
it
of
would
it.
have been wonderful if at that time we had known that there were fields available,
Yeah.
if there are.
Here's the problem. Everybody wants fields at the same time. So while there is some inventory available, there's not a lot of it, and generally there's not much at the time that people want it. Again, because you give priority to your local in-house organizations. So, for instance, I'm working right now on the schedules for the fields at Indian Ledge. They're booked. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're booked. Now, is there going to be spots in there when nobody's on those fields? Of course there are, but the problem is you don't know when those are. So I can't I had a group that asked me to rent a turf soccer field, on a Saturday in May. Well, when we get to that Saturday in May, there might be an hour that I could have given them, but I can't sit here today and say, okay, I can give you 10 to 12. And God forbid if on that day in May, the local soccer group needs the field from 10 to 12 and they go up and find a group of non-residents on there. I got problems that I don't want. Yeah.
May I just, oh, sorry.
Stuart, under parks, can you, the maintenance service contract, can you speak to that increase?
I'm sure we're talking about
Repair
the same.
service?
Yeah, the maintenance repair service contract,
360.
28.
What's the amount on
The
it?
request was 28. First selectman did 23, and it was, reduced.
Yeah.
It's set to 23.
Yes.
Just hasn't been at that level.
This is
the last few years.
service contracts. The reason we proposed the increase in this account, from 18 we proposed 28, and it was set up 23. We had some retirement. We had some reduction in staff last year, which is fine, you know, we addressed that, but in the way that it was implemented, the person who took the retirement had some real skills that we are missing. And one of them particularly was around plumbing. So as opposed to going out and hiring and staffing up again, we looked at adding some incremental funds to this fees account in order to. We're going to have to go out and hire a plumber more often, but again, it's not going to nearly come up to what we saved by reducing both the employee and the benefits and all of that. So again, that retirement saved a lot of money, but it created a small gap in service that we are looking to plug.
Okay. Thank you.
And through the chair, the vacancy, the assistant program manager, part-time, I don't know if, are you gonna be hiring this year or? what's
Yeah, we
happening?
hope to hire actually in the next couple of months. The reason that's remained vacant really is because we've had several staffing changes over the last year, and we're still trying to determine exactly where the greatest need is for that position. So we're our program manager didn't arrive until almost the 1st of September. Our business manager didn't come on until almost the end of December. So we're just getting our staff up and going. I think we're in excellent hires. We're very pleased with the people we've got, but we do anticipate filling that position.
Could it be seasonal?
It would likely be part-time, but that's one of the things we're looking at is whether it becomes, that's only a part-time position.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, the question is whether it becomes 20 hours a week, year-round. More likely, it could be, 30 to 40 hours during the summer and then 10 to 15 hours the rest of the year. The challenge, of course, is finding someone that can work that schedule. So it really is that we're working really hard on trying to identify both the job we need done and the skill set of the person to do it, because trying to find somebody that can that might be available to fit into that schedule. We have the same issue with our staff member that does the aquatics. We're a lot of hours in the summer, trying to pull it back in the winter, and yet keep him employed so he's still here when the summer rolls around again.
You had under capital outlay a dump truck and tractor proposed.
Yes.
The state of the current equipment.
The tractor absolutely needs to be replaced.
Okay.
And the truck would be one of the items that we would suggest deferring. As I said, in reviewing what's been done here, if something was deferred here.
If you choose, definitely the tractor is more.
The tractor's
Okay.
dead, kaput. So, and
Okay.
it's a real workhorse. So
Sure.
that I would tell you is a real priority. The truck, again, we could probably stretch the truck inventory out a little bit. I think the other item in which account is it, in the equipment account, we've got repair and resurfacing of the Island Brook tennis courts. And again, I would suggest that might, it's one of those items where, you push it off a year, but then, you're pushing it right into something else.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that was something we identified as a potential deferral if we needed to, but.
And rentals, occasional rental lease is up to 7,000. Is there something you're anticipating renting that bumped that up? Or?
The 7,000 I think is the historic number, so you can see that in the previous year we only spent 4,200. Again, it's a rental account, so there's probably a couple of items that we would rent on a regular basis, but maybe a piece of machinery goes down where we need to replace something for a week, that kind of thing. So
Okay.
I would think the 7,000 was the original budget.
Right.
In that year that we only spent 4,200.
Right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning?
Nobody. Oh, do you have a question?
Just the question on the tree warden. I'm
Can we
sorry,
go
I
back?
didn't
I have a
realize
question on the
that.
tree warden.
Oh.
Stuart.
I'm sorry, Stuart. Let me have a question on the tree warden.
I'm
I just
sorry,
have
Dawn.
one question, that's
Sure.
okay. That they said that there may be a cost of $5,000 because of the UI, accelerated program with UI. Was that something you're aware of, and is that something we should be looking at and consider? When they took away some of that money from his budget?
They took away some of it. The UI is accelerating their program. Last year, we did get budgeted and did hire an assistant tree warden who's great. He's got a lot of good skills, and one of the tasks that he had was to interface with UI in that program. So that was in our original request. It has been reduced. That is
Something we should be aware of, though, of
Something we
that
should be aware of,
5,000
yes.
for the overtime for that?
Yes.
Right, okay, thank you. Thank you.
It was in the account, it is in the account though, just 3.5% was cut,
Right.
but it's, yeah.
He said he knew. I don't know.
Did you want to make a quick opening statement on your budget?
If you want me to, we had talked, if you don't mind, but I wanted to make sort of an opening statement because planning and zoning, the building department, the fire marshal's office all report up to economic development. And we have been meeting as a team to review permitting fees. We've done some research. Rob has led the research side of it through the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities to look at permitting fees in other communities. And we've been meeting. Bob Dunn, who spoke to you earlier, presented some permit fee increases that our team, and by the way, the engineering department does not, that's the one permitting department, engineering and wetlands, that reports to John Marsilio, but they have been meeting with us about, we want to look holistically at the impact of all the permits, because one project is visiting multiple offices. So we want to look at that so that we're not putting too heavy a burden, particularly on the residential side, is where we're trying to limit greatly any changes there. But even on the commercial side, we want to look at how competitive are we, and so forth. So I wanted to share with you, there's a team that's been meeting, and that the proposals that Bob Dunn, who was here earlier for building, put in front of you, all of us support, and this is why he's already put them out on the table for your discussion. And we've also met with the first selectman about those particular fee increases he discussed. And he was also supportive of those particular fees. The rest of the discussions that you probably have been told, there's a note on the budgets that says this is all being looked at. We're trying to put together a more comprehensive recommendation to the council collectively, okay? So that's, I just wanted to open with that, and I'll let Rob discuss his part of the budget.
Yeah, so I did take a look at our budget of what our finances look like for 2018. There is a salary reduction. We did have a full-time administrator that was removed down to a part-time. That's one of the main concerns that we have in our department in terms of coverage. We hope sometime in the future to reassess that. Also, we are looking at our legal ads as well too. We find that going from the Connecticut Post to the Trumbull Times is a great reduction in price. Where we have a legal ad that's $600, and we're looking at Trumbull Times where it's almost $150. So it's a great savings to our department, because I think legal ads is probably one of our biggest budget items as well too. And as Rena discussed too, we're looking at our fee schedules. Any modifications to the fee schedule, we're going to have to present in front of Planning and Zoning Commission, and then bring it in front of you if that does get pushed forward. So we are looking at ways to make sure that our there may be some items that are kind of standing out that we haven't been looking into in terms of sheds and so forth to kind of reassess our fee schedules. And also our ZEO with his blight and zoning violations brings in I think it was around over $10,000 a year that goes back into the general fund too. So we are, that's another thing that we kind of don't really see that gets put back into from our department. So that's a large savings too.
I think that the challenge we have is we have to be staffed all the time. It's a small group. We lost a half of a position. We're staffing 3 very active commissions and 1 committee. So we're doing this, and don't take this as a complaint in any way, because I wouldn't want to be where you are trying to make these decisions, but I'm just saying we're struggling. That 19.5-hour position we have is now only handling 1 board, but if a meeting goes from, let's say she comes in at 4 o'clock the day of the meeting, so we have nobody there. If they're seeing a resident or a commercial thing, I'm at a meeting, there's nobody in the office, so we're struggling to cover our shifts. If that meeting goes late, which I don't think I need to tell anybody in the room that the meetings occasionally go extremely late, we might run out of hours for that week. So we're struggling with the coverage. We're trying to flex people around to the degree we can. We're all willing to pitch in, but we're concerned just generally, being a smaller department up there, the amount of traffic. If you don't know, we've got people coming in and out of there all day. Every time you do anything to your home on the outside of your structure, and sometimes we have people coming in, all the commercial development that's going on, and the other housing development that's going on, it's growing very difficult to manage the actual hours. So we're very concerned about the 3.5% hitting the staffing side, being that we lost a half a position last year, and we're struggling to recover from that.
Yeah, we have our regular meetings are 12 or 11 a year. Last year we had 19.
Just for P&Z.
Just for planning and zoning. And this year we expect to have even more meetings. Our agendas are getting larger and larger. There's more activity going on. That's a good thing, but we need more staff to support that as well too. We're the starting point really for any type of development that goes in this town. So we should be available to a developer or to a resident and give them full attention.
And just something I talked to Jim Hazelkamp about when we were restaffing the planning and zoning clerk at the 19.5-hour position. That's a very technical position, and the minutes that have to get done for that committee, because of the technical and legal implications of that, takes so much time. Last week, as just an example, and the gal we have in there, she's crackerjack. I mean, she's got a degree in finance. She's so smart. She couldn't. It was like I had to authorize an extra hour for her. There was no way, with the volume, with everything that was going on, with how long the meeting went. I mean, we had her come in at 3 o'clock on Friday instead of her regular hours. So it's challenging. So if we can, at some point in the future, if any of this gets mitigated by the state cuts not being as severe, or there's an ability for us to find revenue enhancements and the savings that you think we're going to realize for legal ads is probably around $15,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
We could actually save just by doing it in the Trumbull Times, and maybe other departments can benefit from that too, because they do have an adequate circulation for what the requirements are, we found. So, and some of them may be doing it already, I don't know, but if we can look at ways to reduce other line items, raise revenue, and try not to affect the staff line item that much, that's really, I think, what we've been talking about.
Questions from finance?
Could you where are you at with the revision, the phase 1, the regulations?
We sent out our RFP, RFQ out. We did get 5 firms, so
Okay.
we're in the process of hiring one of those firms.
Okay.
They came from price ranges varying
And that-
because we gave 2 options, one being either a complete overhaul of the regulations or just going piece by piece to kind of put
And
it
that's just
together.
phase 1, or is that?
That's the whole phase, but
Okay.
but phase 1,
Goes over two budget years.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So what would be your time frame from what you selected to starting? And
Just looking at their RFPs, it looks like around 14 months.
okay.
It's a very time-consuming process. You know, our current regulations don't really comply with our POCD and the temperature of the state right now. So I think if we do that, that's probably going to boost our economic engine and show developers that we're up to date on what's going on and we're ready for business.
And hopefully it'll alleviate the fact that developers are amending our regs, you know, as projects are coming through pretty regularly. Not that that will go away totally, but if we're in a better position with our regs, then we're controlling more of that versus this project by project effect that we're in. So we really need that. And I think one of the bids came back within a reasonable budget, but it's not cheap to do this, no matter if we do a full reg revision or even just like sort of phasing it in. We want to do it right, you know, and so it's going to be tough to come in with the money we have this year and what we were trying to get for next year. It's going to be tight to do it for that. Given we just got the bids back last week, so we didn't really quite know.
Yeah, we're in the process. Once we hire somebody, we're going to be in the process of hiring developing a subcommittee. So we may ask one of you in town council, you know, to be part of that subcommittee as well too, because you know the temperature of the town better than anybody else.
Thank you. Dawn?
Through the chair. So it's 14 months to do phase 1 and phase 2, is that correct?
Yes, it'd be the full completion.
Okay, so you need the 30,000 for this year and 30,000 the previous to finish this, okay.
Yes.
And the, one other question I had, on the blight, is one for external blight under services and fees professional, the 1,000 blight cleanup, is that external? And then the one that you have listed in another area, it's internal, is that correct, for the 2,500 anti-blight porting situation expenses?
Yeah,
They're two different, right? One's
yes.
internal, one's
Mhm.
external?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to check with that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank God.
I'm sorry, I have just
Oh.
one for Rena. Rena, I
We keep
just have-
missing you, Dawn,
I
I'm
know,
sorry.
I'm on the corner here. The communications for public relations, there was a $4,000 allotment for that, and it was cut to $3,860. Can you tell me what exactly that covers? Is that a lot of advertising, or are we looking to maybe save money in that as well?
So what I'd like to be able to do is to do Loop Link and add it to our website. And Loop Link will allow us to have in one place all of the vacant properties that are listed on the commercial, you know, sites, summarized and available, so that rather than us putting our properties in printed news periodicals that are, I mean, we might do some of that, but if we wanted to highlight something, but I think doing it on a web-based and having it available much more broadly, being able to send a link out in different things, we can do it cheaper, and it's got more of a long-term effect than just one print ad. So we are going to go to a different concept for advertising if I have enough money to do it.
So you'll need more?
Well, it's about $2,500 a year just to do that.
Okay.
So that means you're doing like very little, nothing, well, almost nothing else. But you're doing, you know, maybe a few little things.
Thank you.
We do need, I have to tell you, we do need a piece of print material on why Trumbull. We have an old piece that is outdated, that is not even usable anymore, and we're doing the video this year. I have the money to do the video. It's underway, the video remake update, I should call it. So that's kind of like this year's money's paying for that. But we need a piece a piece that can be handed out. I've been asked for it and so forth. It's just we have to get the money for it.
Okay.
So I think that's probably going to cost, between the printing of something like that and the development of it, at least $1,000. I would think, at least.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Besides the new hire, is any of the other training or education mandatory? It is, okay.
Mm-hmm. We put in some suggestions. I'll give you I didn't make copies for everyone, but I don't know if you got a copy of suggestions that we made to the, when we were asked to go back like 5 and 10% of of this year's bottom line, not necessarily the budget line items, but the bottom line. And so I'll leave, and I can get copies of this made. I don't know.
I can make
And but these were just like, if we had to, without touching the staffing stuff. This was mine. Rob had submitted some also that he has. It would gut pretty much, all the operational line items, but we have to cover the meetings and we have to cover the office and do the business. So that's our ultimate concern. I can just leave this with you, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to, you could follow up with me.
Through the chair, Rena, can I just ask the salaries overtime? I see last budget there was $1,350. Is this for the new hire, the overtime, or who? Because last budget there was no overtime.
Yep, what happened was they didn't have it appropriately budgeted because Gail is a union. So 50% of Gail's time is now in the economic development line because she always split her time between economic development department and planning and zoning. Gail is our one full-time person, so she clerks the economic and community development committee as part of her job. Anytime she's a unionized employee, so if she stays any extra time, if she, anything like that, she has to get, and she has to clerk the meeting. So she has to get, instead of clerking fees, they get it's the first hour is not overtime.
Right, it's regular time.
And then
after that is time.
After that, it's time and a half. That's union contract. So they had it set up like that in one department because Rob's in the same situation. When Rob goes to a meeting that goes well beyond, he gets either comp time or overtime. I'm not in that situation. I have a totally different employment setup. But there are people, everyone else, except for our part-timer, she just can only work 19.5 hours. She's hourly. But everyone else, there's that situation. So they did not have it accounted for in that fashion in the budget. So just rather than have it inaccurate, we adjusted her time 50% in planning and zoning, so their salary went down again, their line items. That's just shifting someone's time to make it really clear where she's spending her time, and 50% in economic development, and then accounting for how she was being compensated according to union contract anyway, rather than doing a transfer later.
Right. So you don't get any time. Rob gets comp time and the other person gets overtime. What happened?
No, Rob can get comp time or overtime just like the other person. So he's in a different union from her, but they both, the way it goes with their contract, they either get comp time or overtime. The staff's been wonderful about largely doing the comp time situation because they understand the budget was tight. But part of that challenge becomes the other issue we're having. We have less staffing in the office, so it's like
Can use the comp.
there's only so much comp time. I manage,
Are you getting
managing
overtime
everybody
right now? Or comp time
He
right
would
now?
get comp time.
Right now?
Okay, let's stop
this
asking
meeting?
questions.
Yeah, and so
We're not getting paid at all, so figure.
Yeah, I'm not getting paid either, so, So, but no, I'm in a different situation. I have no complaints. I'm just saying, not everybody's in the same mode, So, again, this is just accurately reflecting it, so we're not coming back and transferring money later. This is how it functions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Just one other question. Rob, did you have one as well for,
I
cuts for
could
Rob?
get you one.
Could you? Thank
Sure.
you. That would help. Thank you very much.
Are we set?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Chief, we're gonna have Lynn go real quick and then. She's gonna be. Rena's been calling money anyways.
Please.
Lynn's only gonna be a couple minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, Rena, you need to get comp time or overtime. What's up? Who negotiated your contract?
Some loser. That's the name. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
Good evening, everyone.
How you doing?
Good, how are you tonight?
Just get paid for this.
Did you have a short opening statement?
Yeah, I do, just a very short one. In looking at the reductions here, for each of the accounts, there's a couple that, I would think doesn't even get reduced that much on. The biggest thing is we did ask for a new vehicle this year. Not that I necessarily want one, but I'm told that it's rusting out a lot. So it may be a situation where, it's gonna start costing money, although it hasn't been so far, and it's only got about just less than 70,000 miles on it, 8 years old. So instead of all those reductions, I'd rather just see holding off on that vehicle purchase for another couple of years. My vehicle is not like the police department vehicles where they're running almost 24 hours a day. We just usually run it during the day. Sometimes the police need it at night for something, and it's basically run 6 days a week. So I think that we can maybe get away with another year or two on that, if that helps with the reductions here.
Is that in the under capital outlays here?
Yes,
6,000?
yes, and that's the 6,000, which the
Yeah.
reduction was 4,000, so I'm actually.
So that would
Actually
cover,
giving you a
yeah.
Covered,
couple-
definitely would cover it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything else would
That's
be kind of hard because, again, I'm a 7-day operation with the animals. We have to have someone there. We are closed on Sundays to the public, but I still have to have people come in. So reducing the staffing or pay for the staffing would be kind of hard. And even on holidays and things like that, again, we have to have people there. So that would be kind of hard. And I certainly would not want to lose any of my services, professional services. Those are the veterinary, which they give a very good discount to us. We're very lucky that they actually give a very good discount to us, but sometimes those costs do go up. And I never know from year to year how many animals I might come in that might need to have some, and we do very conservative stuff, but even still, I'd hate to see that reduced. And also, again, program supplies, that's where we're buying a lot of our food and stuff for the shelter to operate, and we have expenses, paper towels and cleaning supplies and things like that. And also the professional service, that fee is only $150. Basically, it's the $75 a year conference that's available to us. Animal control officers now in the state, we have to be certified, and we do have to have 6 hours of continuing education. So that, going to the conference does take a big chunk of that if we can't get to training anywhere else to do that. I think it's at least 5 or 6 hours right there if you attend the conference, then you're all set for the year. So as I mentioned, I would rather see the vehicle get delayed for a couple of years and then help out that way as opposed to
Perfect.
That's perfect.
the
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's great, thank you.
Very helpful.
all right,
Very, very helpful.
thank you very much.
May I just
Questions?
ask-
Oh, any questions?
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for all you do. This is real. And I just wanted to ask you, as a just point of information, what's happening with all the coyotes? And how do you handle them when people say, I just saw a herd of coyotes? Or how do you handle that? Because I know I wouldn't want to be going into a herd of coyotes.
Coyotes all the time.
They're everywhere. They're all over the state. They're all over New England. And actually, there's been some talks recently because, again, now it's been in New Canaan. I'm going to be going in a couple weeks. New Canaan's having a talk. Some of those areas, she's had a lot of problems, and her residents down there don't want to hear, they're here, leave them alone kind of thing. Basically, what we do try and do, they are everywhere. So trying to trap or remove these animals is kind of pointless. They have moved into our area. Generally, they're not aggressive towards people. I'm not to say that things couldn't happen, and I guess in the past maybe somewhere a rabid coyote attacked somebody. But generally, they know human beings. They stay away from human beings. They are getting bolder in our communities because they are being raised amongst us. And this time of year, there's a lot of activity because they have been mating and they're breeding. They have den sites, and they can get territorial. The biggest threat they are is to people's pets, basically, especially the small dogs, cats. And even that sometimes, you know, that a larger dog is fine, but basically what I tell people when they call is that if your little dog is out there running around, you really need to go out with your dog. It's like leaving a 2-year-old in your yard alone, with a small dog. And the same thing with cats. Sometimes people do have inside-outside cats. But basically we try and encourage people to haze them, and the New Canaan ACO came up with this great little idea. It's a little kit she put together of noisemakers and certain things like that to haze them. If you see them in your yard, basically what you should be doing is trying to scare them. Get them to go back into the woods and not be seen like they're being seen now. A lot of these animals just, you know, we've moved into their territories and we've built houses all around, and we've actually made it easier and better for them to set up den sites under our porches, under our sheds. There's some food issues with getting into the garbage cans, sometimes bird feeders, that kind of stuff. So basically, if people keep their yards cleaner, even brush piles, because coyotes actually eat a lot of mice. Coyotes and fox eat a lot of mice, which we don't really necessarily want around, mice and rats. But keeping your yards clean, no pet food out, that kind of thing. And if they are seen, basically just throw something at them, make some noise, squirt a hose, just do something so that they will be more scared and go back into the wooded area, so we're not going to see them as much. It's mostly just people seeing them, and that kind of freaks them out.
My street, the end of the river's there.
Right.
There's that river hissing
Yes.
at the people in the yard.
Yeah. Well, again, most of the time, this time of year, you're going to have behaviors of where they have a territory, they have a den site around, and many times they're looking at people, watching people, because you may be kind of in their area too. They see that you're coming close to where their den site is.
So you get a lot of calls, and I'm sure the police get calls when
lot
they,
of calls.
and so there's really nothing you can do.
Well, we just basically tell people, you know, just try and haze them. I mean, yeah, as far as, unless something is creating a public safety hazard, and the DEP basically will not come out and do anything about that, they would basically tell your local police that if you have something that's being aggressive towards a human being, the police can come out and shoot it. There is no rehab for coyotes, coyote pups, or anything like that. So basically that's what they, and there's no relocation for those animals either. Someone could hire a trapper if they wanted to, but that's very expensive. And again, trapping is not the solution. I talk to people every day, especially right now, because the wildlife is active, and you know, the little animals are digging holes under the porches and under sheds and foundations to make a den site. And I tell people, your options are trying to evict the animal and get it off your property to go someplace else, or hiring a trapper. But you're going to spend a lot of money doing that. These people are not cheap to come out and trap animals, most of them to have them killed, and that just opens up the yard again, and another one's going to come in. So some of it is teaching people to be a little tolerant. I mean, Trumbull, as most areas here, we have wooded area all around our neighborhoods, and that's the greenway for these animals to move around. And then we've just created a lot of places for them to have babies. So it's mostly just trying to, some tolerance, but then also being a little bit careful and not leaving stuff around that would attract them into your property areas. A lot of them are nighttime creatures, and they really don't want to have contact with us. They really don't. And so it's usually just people just freaking out. But the dogs and the cats, yeah, that can kind of be a problem. Children know. I mean, they do know. And most of the time we say, if you're with your pet on a leash, even if that coyote might be kind of looking at you or watching you, if you're kind of, especially like on the trails or near the wooded areas, generally they're not going to come after you. And if you make yourself big and scary, then that's going to, you know, kind of get them to go back into the woods and be a little more fearful.
I see them in the park.
Yeah. Oh,
Unity
yeah.
Park at night.
Yeah.
And since I'm big and scary, they,
Yeah, and the other thing too is that the coyotes now that we see up here are bigger than like the little western coyotes, and the theory is that as they migrated east, there probably is some wolf and maybe some dog that they hybrids. So I have yet to see one alive anyway, but there's people that tell me, oh yes, it's big like a wolf. It's not. I said it's coyote. They're like, no, it's big like a wolf. So it's this coy wolf, what they're calling a coy wolf. But they still, at this point, still have a coyote type behavior, and I've not had anybody attacked by a coyote. I mean, I investigate more dog bites and cat bites, people's pets that live with them and sleep in their bedroom, than I do with wildlife. So it's just a matter of just trying to talk to people and relieve some of their fears. These animals really aren't out to be harmful.
So you would like the 4,000 back, and like a big stock of noisemakers to hand out.
Well, that I can probably raise just by doing that, but yeah, actually, like I said, this, and the ACO got hers funded from a resident too, because, they were trying to, you know, alleviate some of the issues, as well down there. And it just, she said she bought all this stuff on Amazon for $13 and put it in a little bucket and said it's the coyote safety kit. So.
That's a cute fundraiser.
But, you know, and it gives some people some empowerment, but I also have a lot of calls about a lot of the other wildlife too. You know, the raccoons that get in the cans and nesting in the chimney, and they're just a multitude. This time of year we get lots of calls about that. And so we just try and handle it with people in a more humane way, just let them know. They do have the option of spending the money to have the animals killed if that's what they want to do. Most people are like, oh no, I didn't realize that would happen, and then they kind of will take some of our suggestions and work with it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lee, thanks.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, Chief. You guys wanna have those guys come up too? Okay.
Sure. I just want to caution, whatever repairs have to happen to her vehicle, because we don't replace it this year, it comes out of my vehicle repair account. No, I'm serious. And I know her brake lights,
So if something happens to her car, take Tim's car and we'll just replace it.
I'll pass it on.
Write more tickets
We'll take
for
Tim's
the park
car.
and you guys will get it.
We'll take Tim's car and we'll make the animal control
Right?
car. Might as well come, you know.
So, to begin with, I just wanted to back up a little bit. And as you know, we're on the town side, the largest department. We run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're the only department that doesn't close, although I know fire and EMS do get called out during all times of the day and night. Last year when we presented the budget, we requested to add 3 officers to the department because we wanted to start the school resource officer program, which was approved. The funding was approved for that for basically halfway through the year, approximately January 1st, on or about January 1st. And there was a supplemental we did because of some confusion last year after the budget was approved, but that's done and it's behind us. So this year when we put together the budget, the salary line increased because of those 3 officers are now for the full year on our payroll. The union received 2.5% raises in their working contract. We have 16 officers in step increases. And the police commission promoted 1 additional police lieutenant last March. So here we are, fast forward a year, and we also looked at some of our state mandated costs. I know some of the other departments talked about that. There's certifications that they have to have. There's continuing education programs they have to go to. In the police department, because of the size of it and the liability and the things that we do, we tried to get the best estimate as to how much that costs us to run each year for the training recertification that has to happen every 3 years, and some of the other training and a lot of it's firearms training, some of it's deadly force training, some of it's fair and impartial policing training that we need to do, things like that. And that tops out at the most, it's somewhere around $300,000 for a year in overtime. So that's a big number, and we have to do a lot of that. We have to do it. And even the minimum of it is a low end. So I know we have a lot of expenses, a lot of costs. We just recently signed a pact with Monroe, a mutual aid special duty pact, where our officers and their officers, if there's additional work that Monroe may be having in their town, like say tree work on the side of the road and they need to hire a policeman, and Monroe can't fill it, they'll call Trumbull and say, do you have anybody who wants to work these assignments? So if we do and all of our jobs are filled, they can go there and work in Monroe. But it's good for the officers, but it's also good for us because we charge $25 an hour for that car. And there's also an administration fee on top of the officer's hourly rate. So there's revenue that's generated for the town in that regard. What that figure will be, I don't know, because it just started maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I can tell you in that time period, there was probably about $1,000 in vehicle fees that we were going to charge for in the 3 different days I think that we were up there. It's not going to be an everyday thing by any means, but it is something that it kind of helps out both departments in both towns. So when we presented the budget in January of this year, we were fully staffed at 81 police officers. We submitted the budget for that amount of officers. It went through the first selectman's office. I know each year there's generally a reduction for
anticipated attrition that the department may see throughout the year. So that, this year, that number was $165,000 cut from the salary line because of that anticipated attrition rate. We have 31 officers that are eligible to retire if they choose to retire. So then we move forward to the Board of Finance, and 3.5% was cut. And I understand that. I completely understand what the town is trying to prepare for. They're trying to prepare for the worst case scenario, and trying to keep taxes in as good a place as we can. I do appreciate that. But the total salary line comes to just under $419,000. What that would translate for us would be a reduction in programs and services. And I can't make up that dollar figure anywhere in the budget. It's just too big a number. So,
Hey, Chief, sorry to jump in, a question. Do you guys have like a stopgap, like in other words, say all 31 guys came and said, I'm retiring tomorrow. Is there a number that you guys can only say only X amount can retire at a time?
no.
Really?
No.
Jeez.
No, I don't anticipate
I'm just saying.
number.
I'm just hypothetically saying
Yeah.
that you could say you'd be down 30 guys. That'd be brutal. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying, do you guys have like a stop? You can let so many guys go to like if they were to want
No.
to do that at a time.
No, there's nothing to prevent
Oh, wow.
that. I doubt something like that, but
Yeah, but that's hypothetical.
It could potentially
Even if you get
happen.
10, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
it would be a
She's walking
big.
around the mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you might have a number that says, well, we only got 3 guys at a time, or But this one, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
you,
no,
Jeff.
that's okay. So our concern is reduction in personnel, because that big of a number is impossible for, it's a little under 6% of our salary line, that number.
I'm sorry, can I just have, you had said that it was a salary reduction of 419,000?
The total from our initial proposal.
Oh, from your initial, okay, because I'm
Proposal.
seeing from.
Not what the Board of Finance did.
I'm sorry, from
No,
the
they did
first
3.5
selectman to the Board of Finance, I see
combined.
about 273,
The two
okay.
together came out to the 419.
Got it, okay, I
That's
just
what
wanted to
I'm
make
saying.
sure I understood where
And
you
what-
came
what-
from. so.
The reduction for the attrition happens every year. It's slightly more this year than it was last year, but it does happen every year.
Right, you plan that in, right, so you
where
have
there-
how long
where-
you're gonna have the salary
Right,
expense,
right. So I understand that. So I had one senior officer submit her retirement paperwork to me recently. She'll be leaving the end of April. So the way the budget stands right now, we're not gonna look to fill that. I have somebody else who's on an unpaid leave of absence. I don't know if he's coming back or not. And the Deputy Chief Burns and I, and Kirby went through various scenarios of how we could maybe make this up and what are some of the scenarios that could happen. So if we had 3 senior officers retire, right now we have 1 and possibly a second. If we have 3 and nobody else, then that would mean those 3 senior officers and the equivalent of probably 3 of the junior officers that we've hired. To make up that total amount.
Over the 296.
It would make up the total, 419, I think it is.
419 is what you said.
Yeah,
I'm just going by what they cut out. They said
It's the original request to the
yeah.
Board of Finance
like-
number,
oh,
it's
okay.
273-ish
Oh, so
from,
Tim took it down from, okay.
Yeah.
Tim's to the Board of Finance,
So
that's
with-
where I was hung up.
So with the one officer that we know that did leave the department, that is leaving the department at the end of April, that brings the cut that the Board of Finance did, if we don't replace that person all year, down to just over $174,000. That we're still short, plus the attrition amount too. So there's various, I know it's maybe a little complicated, it is to us too, but there's a lot of different scenarios on how it could play out.
Mhm.
So we're just trying to prepare for what may happen and what could be our worst case scenario. The last thing we wanna do, the very last thing we wanna do, is let anybody go. We have 6 people in the police academy now, so we've got a huge investment with them. Their hiring is very expensive to put them through the testing process, the psychological examinations they have to go through, the polygraph examinations they have to go through.
And
All
they're in here now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All the background investigation work that they've gone through. And they're on payroll right now. So 4 of them started in October. They get out of the police academy in April, and then they have another 12 weeks of field training. Then they can work alone for us. They're certified officers then. So that probably would be around August. And then the remaining 2 get out in July, and then another 12 weeks from there. So what I'm trying to say is there's an investment, because those people are already on our payroll. They're already collecting benefits. They're already being paid. We've invested in their training. We've paid or will pay the Connecticut Police Academy a fee for them to go to that training. So I'm just saying we have an investment already. We're full staff. If we do see some retirements, that would be great, because then I know we would be in a much better position for the budget, because we would not anticipate replacing those positions with the reductions that we're faced with today. So my hope is that, you know, what the state is looking at to won't happen, and we'll be in much better shape than this.
Were you okay with the first selectman's reduction of the salaries overtime 30,000 and then that 200,000? Were you okay with that? Like his before the Board of Finance, or no? That
Well, we kind of anticipate the reduction for attrition every year.
Mhm.
We know that's going to happen, and we know that there may be people that would leave, so we hope to make it up there. Sometimes if we stayed at full 81 for all of next year, then we'd be short $165,000 in the salary line, because we're at full staff. If people leave, then that attrition amount that he figured, or that the Board of Finance may figure, would become smaller if people left throughout the year, and we'd be able to make up that amount.
and the overtime you would be okay with 650? Just
So the
that's
overtime
it?
amount, with the 650, we would do the best we can to come in with it, come within that. We've done really good with the overtime the last couple of years, and it's come down, so we would just continue to do our best to bring it down as much as we can. A lot of the things that we do is, we send a lot of people out for trainer-trainer training, so we can do in-house training, because as I said earlier, there's a tremendous amount of state mandated training for any police department in the state. You have to do it. So we send people out to training for trainer-to-trainer courses. They come back, and then they'll train our people. And what's nice about that is we can see when we have people working that we can switch them off their shifts. We can kind of do it more at our leisure, instead of there's a class that's being held in Meriden, and 8 people have to go to it all at one shot, and you have to backfill all the shifts with a lot of overtime. We have a little more flexibility with the trainer within the department. So we've done that with our first responders, the EMR training that the officers have. We have an officer who recertifies them every year. We have that with our firearms instructors. They're all in-house. They train on the use of deadly force, all in-house. The Narcan training that we have in the field for opioid overdoses, that's all done in-house. The AED, the defibrillators, that's all been done in-house, and we continue to do that. And there is a cost to it, obviously, but it does save our money. It does reduce the town's costs.
Thank you.
So you going through a lot of Narcan still, or did it slow down?
Unfortunately, last year we had reported to us 22 overdoses, not all heroin related or opioid related, and we used Narcan 15 times.
Jesus.
So it's a problem that
that's your guys are
it's
doing
not going to
that.
go away anytime soon.
They have to wait for like help, or they just
No, we do it.
I don't know, but you guys have to wait for their officer to come, or you guys just, if you're there, you just do it.
No, they do.
Yeah, the officers
okay.
do it. No, the officers, they all carry it with them.
Wow.
And we're first responders in Trumbull. We, not every time, but a lot of times get to the medical calls first, because we're in the field already.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll get to the homes, and if that's the case, they'll use their Narcan. So then the same thing with the defibrillators. So it's not something that is going to go away anytime soon. We're not going to arrest ourselves out of this, and we're not going to, it's just going to be a culmination of a lot of different things over the years that hopefully we'll be able to
You're kind of doing EMS work at the same time.
Yeah, they
A little
do.
bit, right?
Yeah, they do the medical calls. So we answer about 2,400 medical calls a year, something like that. So.
Dawn, you had a question?
I do. On the budget, I see that you have reductions of 3.5%. Are any of these contractual that you don't think we would be able to cut?
Yes.
Because I know there are some in other departments as well.
So we have a contract with the police union, and what wasn't cut was the longevity amount was left alone, but the collective bargaining agreement with the police union says that if officers put in for the college incentive, they have to get reimbursed. If the shift differential, they have to get that shift differential when they work. So if we have people work a midnight shift and evening shift, they get a shift differential. It's part of their salary because of the hours, they will be paid it. And it's not something we can say, well, we'll pay you next year or anything like that. We have to do it. No matter what is in there. And the holiday pay is contractually obligated also. And then full staff will be paying full amount of holidays. They get 13 holidays paid for each year. So at full staff, we'll be paying the 13 times the 81 officers, and now we'll be at 81. We are at 81 in late April, as I mentioned, so it'll be reduced by one person, but.
So Chief, how many calls do all you guys go out on? Like, the whole year?
Throughout the
Everything-
year?
Everything, you know, car accidents.
It's about 20,000.
Jeez.
19 to 20,000. And that would range from anything.
Yeah,
that
that's
would
what I mean,
be
anything.
helping somebody lock themselves out of their home, lock themselves out of their car.
I'm just thinking about Trumbull and the 20,000 in Trumbull. Just imagine, it's like Bridgeport must be like 100.
It's busy. They
crazy,
they
right?
keep they keep busy. They keep moving. They answer over 200 domestic calls every year. They go to the medical calls I mentioned. They go to the accident calls that we all know. And what's really key, and one of the things about having enough people in the field, I mean, we do have a minimum manpower. We have to have a minimum amount of police officers in the field, and that will always happen. But what concerns me with if we got to the point where we had to reduce anybody from the Department of Patrol, is that rapid response to those critical calls where someone has having a heart attack, or we need to use the Narcan, or there's an accident, you know, our rapid response to those, or a crime, helps save lives, and it helps de-escalate calls. If we go to a violent call at the mall, we had somebody a few weeks ago who worked at one of the restaurants in the mall who was threatening people with a butcher knife. Our rapid response, and not just that case, but others, our rapid response to domestic incidents by separating people sometimes can de-escalate things before it gets really out of hand. So our ability to get to these calls is really key.
Are you getting a lot of calls from, say, from the students that are staying in all the housing in the town?
No,
Not too much?
Not really.
They did get some, like, not recently, but got some
Oh,
complaints,
Sacred
too much
Heart.
noise and stuff, like the kids are renting a house on like Reservoir and stuff.
No, I mean, we
Not
go to the party
quiet
complaints.
part,
We
yeah.
go to party complaints, more
Yeah.
in the spring and summer, fall, but we go to them.
It's not really a lot, though.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, that's good. I just thought I'd ask, I
Yeah.
was curious.
Yeah.
It's more exciting.
There's some dollars budgeted in the revenue side. There's for some of the permits, fees, and fines.
Right.
Is there anything that you could look at from there to try to offset some of the cost savings? I mean, again, you're talking about, I think 70,000 was the highest number here for 2016-17 on the town council budget. Your last year budget was 59, and you're looking at 50 this year.
I'm trying to find it.
I mean, every nickel's counting in this budget, so
You probably don't have it there.
Yeah.
No, you don't have it.
you don't have that?
Is that revenue from special
Yeah.
detail?
No, that's regular.
I put an arrow next to it. You could just look at the
okay.
line. If there's a possibility of, you know, trying to offset at least some of it.
Yeah, so
like
what I
said,
mentioned
everybody's
earlier,
counting.
if it's included in this line that you point out here, like I said, we have that new mutual agreement with Monroe, so that
That'll increase,
maybe
right? We don't know the amount
it's
though.
hard, it's really hard because we just started it, so it's hard to say, okay, last year we generated 10,000 and this year we expect to generate the same amount. I do know about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I had a discussion with Maria and we increased the amount that we charge per hour for those cars. It went from $20 an hour to $25 an hour. I could actually survey area departments to see if we're still in line with
But
that.
that's on the special detail. That's
Yeah.
not here, though.
But
Not
I
on
was
the
just
regular
talking
budget.
in general. It's not on this page? Okay.
No, that's fine.
Now, are you still doing the emergency
Can I
stuff?
just ask-
Emergency, yeah, okay.
So our
So
revenue.
is that a more detailed analysis? I
Yeah,
don't
well,
know.
that's our revenue report. I don't know if you have it. I should assume you have
Did we
it.
get the revenue?
They don't give us all
They don't
copies.
get
I don't remember
No,
seeing
we
that.
don't, we don't give them a package.
Okay, that's what we put together. I could send it to you, or if you want to make copies of it.
What is the total amount of revenue? Because I don't think that this has got
So-
the full picture.
So this, between the alarm ordinances, fingerprinting, parking tickets, and miscellaneous fees, for the first 5 months of the year, from July 1st to November 30th, it was $24,006.
Mhm.
And then here, this was the special detail surcharge, and the police, that's for the vehicles. That was,
For rent, the $25
Yeah.
an hour you're discussing. Yeah.
and then that was the surcharge that's added to the hourly rate.
Mhm.
And then the total anticipated approximate amount, it's just based on the 5 months revenue.
So 365 is what you're anticipating. That's 16-17.
The special, the cars is for the special detail, so it's not in the general fund budget.
Right.
I would think I would just ask if you could maybe take a look at that and
Okay.
try to get a sense for maybe what that Monroe Pact may, just
Okay.
get an estimate, because I
Sure.
think if we could use some of that to
Yeah.
offset some of the expense reductions, at least it's a start.
Okay.
It's a help, right?
Okay, sure.
Anything at this point,
I know.
to try to avoid cutting services.
Now, is the emergency management stuff lumped in all here, or is it separate? I can't remember.
It's in the police department's budget, but it's a separate, and we usually talk about it later.
Yeah. Make sure. I know that's what you do. That's your specialty.
Yeah, just back to the training. You said that's all mandatory stuff, and
Well-
who does that cover?
Some of everybody in the department,
Okay.
any sworn officer has to do the training, and we have some civilians that have to go through some training. Dispatchers have to go to some training also. And we have 3 civilian dispatchers and 1 part-timer for the weekend.
Okay.
But
It's
everything is-
annual, every couple of years? or-
well, every officer has to have 60 hours of recertification every 3 years. So right now we have it spaced out almost in thirds every 3rd year. So we don't send in 80 people at once. We're sending them in. It spreads it out throughout the course of 3 years over a period of time.
Okay.
The training amount here that you see, the 165 and the 170,
Right.
that's to cover overtime if they have to go on overtime. That's not every amount of training they go on is overtime.
Okay.
That's just, and not every bit of that is mandated. That's training we want to send people to also. There's a lot of training that we want to have people get in here, special training, special abilities, whether it's computer science.
So it's overtime because it's beyond their work week?
Beyond the regular work week, yeah, or it's off their shift or something. So what we've also done is we've, if training is 30 days out from when we tell them they're gonna go to the training, we can switch them off their shift. We have the ability to do that now in their working contract, where we just did active shooter training and low light setting shoot training. So we sent all the people in the patrol division to that training in the last few weeks, and with the exception of a few. But what we did was we scheduled that out way ahead of time, so we were able to switch a lot of people, and there was really not a big cost to us in overtime. And some people do take comp time also. And it doesn't come out of the overtime right then, and we don't know who that might be, because it can fluctuate depending on whether they want it. They can choose themselves which way they want it, and it saves us initially, but then when they go to take that time off, it's time and a half. So instead of, if they work 8 hours and they get comp time, it's 12 hours off to them. So if we have to backfill their shift later, we're paying it again, you know?
I just want to make one comment, that you did cut $60,000 last year in overtime. Is that correct, approximately?
We were just under the 650,
Yeah.
and I think it was
617 last year.
Yeah, so you did a great job last year,
Oh,
so
thank
I just wanted to point out that 650
We look at it all-
is a
we
really
really-
good number.
We look at it all the time. Weekly, we get the entire update on our budget, and the deputy chiefs and I, we look at it with these fellows are in charge of divisions, and they're always looking for ways to do things and enhance, especially the training that we can do for the officers, and how can we save money and do it at the same time. And it's a struggle. Some of it's difficult, but as I said, we try to do the trainer so we can train our own people, and then there's other classes we have to send people out for.
Very good, thank you.
On the uniform allowance, the request went up like 5,000, but it says it's approximately 8,000 for a new officer. Is there a reason why it was up to only?
Well, because we were at full staff and we submitted the budget, so we didn't.
So it's like a prorated amount. Well, I would assume
Well,
it would go up 8, right? If it's
No, because if I knew I was going to hire 4 or 5 people this coming year,
right.
then I know it's about 8,000 a person. This year, just recently, we did a transfer where we transferred money from training overtime account to our uniform account to backfill, because each new officer, and we hired 6,
Okay.
is about 8,000, so we were going to be way over in our uniform allowance.
All right.
And that's all is guns and
Everything, the ballistic vests, their
Vests,
uniforms, they have to have a certain amount of uniforms
shoes and all that.
per their working contract, everything. All the equipment.
Yeah, I think that's what people don't realize, it's not just
Yeah.
shirts and pants,
Mm-hmm.
it's
It's
like,
a
I didn't
big
even, you know.
stuff.
Yeah,
It's huge.
there's a lot of things involved in it. So,
Okay, we have emergency management on here also. Is that, have we covered that, or is that a different?
that's maintenance.
That's you, okay, I'm sorry.
So,
Where are we hiding it?
Yeah.
that's what I asked.
I couldn't find
It's
it,
after
so-
building official, so I guess it's a page or so further down on that
Okay.
same thing, just before the end of public.
Page 7, 201.
There it goes.
Oh, there it is.
It's in the big book.
Okay.
What's it after?
Here we go.
Right before the total of public safety, it's right above it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Last but not least.
Yes. Go ahead.
So understanding the scenario that we're in, and also my budget's kind of within the police department budget, so certain things overlap. I understand the necessity to cut the 3.5% and the total amount that would be taken from my budget. I wouldn't ask to put anything back in there. However, I would like to take up on your suggestion if I could offer a couple of
Sure.
thoughts of how to take the same amount out, but not from where it's being taken out from now.
Please,
It would save me
yes.
a lot of time and
Please, it would save all of us a lot of time, because at the end of the day, you're
Exactly.
gonna
We'd
do
have to
that.
do the same
So
thing.
I'll be very quick. and
We have
it's-
to vote on line item transfer, so if we can do
Right.
it now and get it in the right lines, or at least where you think you're gonna put them,
There
it
you
saves
are. I'm ready if
everyone a
you are.
lot of time.
Should we wait for
It's
Maria
actually
just
pretty
so she
simple.
can take
All right.
notes?
Yeah,
Let's just wait for Maria just in
All right.
case.
So it's a few accounts, it's not a lot.
Yeah, it's literally
Okay.
just a couple and
It's a small.
okay.
yeah, that's great.
Combining them. And that would save me a lot of
And we actually, in the police part of it, we actually, after the Board of Finance cuts, went through every line item and made a bunch of adjustments on our own end to see if we're at some point allowed to do that, what we would like to do. Basically, like you had mentioned, to the deputy chief and to one of the other departments that he was here, how could you do it on your own? So we did that on the.
If
Can you
you
guys
could
move
get
stuff
that back
around
to
yourself?
us.
Oh,
right.
sorry.
Sorry,
Sorry,
Tony.
yeah.
If you could get that back to us,
Yep.
before we vote on this, we could
Move
go
it
ahead
around
and
for you.
reset that, so that's what the approved
I
budget
was
is
under,
by line
I
item,
was
and
under the
then,
impression a few weeks ago that, kinda wait till after July and then you can adjust things. But I'll be happy to do it now.
Well, I just got a quick.
we'll
Can
have
they
to
move
transfer
stuff to
line
the-
item,
you're gonna
we're gonna have to
have to do it
vote on everything, so it's all gonna come back. If we can set it up this way to begin with,
Yes.
we save everybody a lot of
Yeah.
work, so I think to the extent we can get that in
Okay.
now is the best time.
Can you guys move stuff around without can you guys move stuff yourself? You got to go to Maria
Yeah.
and have move around.
Yeah,
Typically
she
it's back
can,
and forth.
she'll reallocate it.
Yeah. But you guys, yeah, they don't have to.
It's not-
It's not like a corporation with
No, they
ghost
can do it,
funds.
they
You
can,
just got to go to Maria. and
they'll
she can
get it
move
to Maria, Maria will give us a revised version
Oh,
Right.
no, I'm
by
saying
line item,
No,
and
no,
then,
it's
not like the
say
Board
this
of
is,
Ed.
oh no,
Right.
I'll ask Maria.
before, no, no,
Wait,
no,
what is that thing?
before we
Yeah.
vote on the budget.
Yeah, we just-
Once we
Yeah.
vote on the budget, it's
He's
fine.
saying
You know,
Right, but can,
We don't wanna
after
do
it's
that
locked
after.
in,
So-
can they
Tell us
move
what he
it?
wants.
Lori,
They
one
can,
of
but they
the,
have to we have to vote on it.
all of what we kind of went through this exercise.
Maria's
on our own to
excited.
try to do that Is dependent upon the salary line, a big portion of that being reinstated. Because we can't do all of that without the salary line being reinstated, it's not gonna work.
Right.
That's what happened to most of the smaller departments.
It's hard, and
It's
I-
hard with smaller
Believe me,
departments
I
too.
understand the position the town is in, and I completely appreciate it. I'm just factually just trying to explain to this board, where we are as a police department. I'm sure every other department, has the same problems we do. I don't think we're
If
original
I
in
call
that.
911, the building department's not gonna come. and
Yeah,
rescue
it's-
them.
Yeah,
it's a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, just, you know.
Glad we all understand that.
You know,
As I backed
I-
up so the
I
camera
think
doesn't see.
we're probably all in a position where the budgets are just very lean right now, and there's just that, it's hard, and I don't wanna cut into programs and services. I don't think anybody does.
And we're all hoping
Yeah, I
that the
hope this is
state will
all
give
for
some,
just
right,
an exercise,
right,
right?
everything's up in the
Right.
contingency line.
exactly.
If we
Yep.
don't get as much of a reduction, we can reallocate
Yep.
it back into the line
That'd be
items,
great.
but right now we have to
We
plan
have
for the
to-
worst case, or what we think is the worst
Yeah.
case. It could be even worse than we think, but
Sure.
right now this is what we're working with.
Please.
All right,
Okay.
so,
He's got suggestions.
yes, so there were a couple of projects that, before the state's budget outlook came out, were minor projects that I had put in program supplies. My biggest thing with emergency management is my part-time employee and the service contracts, which allow me the software and mechanisms to make the emergency operations center function. Those are my two big items. So what I would suggest is under the 501-102 account, which is the permanent part-time person, there's a reduction of 1,467.
If you were to put that, or take that out of the program supplies instead, that amount. And then, under maintenance service contracts, which is 578801, there's a reduction of 833. If you were to also take that out of the program supply line item, that would be a total reduction in the program supplies of an additional $2,300. And that would return the 102 account to its normal and the 801 account to its normal. And that would make my life a lot better.
Okay.
And it would be the
Sounds
same
simple.
exact amount that was reduced by the Board of Finance.
Yeah.
Sure.
It just kind of juggles it for us so we know what we need
Sure.
to operate.
Thank you.
I tried to make it so mine's very small, so it's kind of cheating in a way that I only have a small amount, because it's really a small operating budget within it, and it's only for when we're activated on emergency status. So
I just have a question for Chief. What's how you guys doing with the building on the inside? So we haven't heard like an update. Like, I know you guys are working on the center's all done, the call center's all done, and you guys are working on the bottom stuff, and that's, you guys are still getting
Yes, the communication center was completed mostly a year ago. There was some extra work that was done around the first floor in the corridors and so forth. For those of you who have been in there, you can see the hallways were cleaned up and some finishing work on some of the offices there. Since then, some other detail work was started on the second floor, and the larger capital projects were put through and approved over the course of the last year or so. And some of them include the security systems with electronic lockings, which we tried to expand from the communications through other parts of the building. And next we'll be looking at the repair for the firing range downstairs. That ties into the training cost and so forth to do it inside. You'll remember the ventilation system needs to be completed. There's some repair work that needs to be done to the cell block that was approved in the capital project. And we'll be looking to revamp the locker room, which needs to be overhauled and expanded, which a lot of you have seen in your building tours.
Yeah. Can I ask you
That's the
about,
bulk of it right now.
do those, do all those projects that you just mentioned on the capital plan, are they all out to, do they go out to bid, or are they, how does that work?
No, the largest ones were just approved within the last
They will
couple
go.
of months.
They haven't yet. They just
All
got
of
approved
them, the ventilation, everything
Yes.
goes out to bid, so you,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
through the normal bid process,
Oh, sure.
three?
If it's over 10,000, has to be
It has to go
sealed
out.
bid.
Over 10, okay, that's what I was just
We
wondering,
haven't gotten
so,
there yet.
Yeah,
It
no.
hasn't started yet.
I was just wondering what the process was, that's all I was asking about, so, yeah, so it follows the normal protocol, okay,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, they're in the hallway right now.
Okay.
And then
All right, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I like when the police are here.
I know, I do too.
Feel safe.
I do, it's really- it's a good feeling.
You can still stay.
Well, chin,
We're not
I
gonna
feel
start
much
overtime
safer
either.
with you guys, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chin.
Bill, you're up.
Anne Marie likes to come out here too. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm gonna make this really easy.
What page are you on?
Bill
79 and 3.
82 and 80. Bill, that's what my kids got for the Lenovo.
Good night.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Bye, thank you.
I'm gonna give you back more money than I'm gonna ask for.
Oh,
Hey.
Oh, wow.
Bill's the
Is
best.
this the phone system?
you're my kind of guy.
No, he needs the phone
He's
system.
firing
He told me
somebody
that.
and if they don't know that. in your
Yeah.
office.
No, Bill told me he needs the phone system.
Yeah, the phone system.
He's
Yeah,
got
but
it.
the
He
question
knew he
was,
gotta
where
fix
is it gonna land, right?
Can't wait for that to be done.
Is that, Bill, do we know, I mean, can you give us an update on that before you start on whether or not that's operating, or where you ended up?
We have site visits on Friday to some, I think New Haven, we're going to New Haven where they have this premise-based system, which is what we're leaning towards installed, so we'll go look at that. We haven't notified the vendors yet, but we're closing in.
Page 3 and
On
79.
the premise base,
Yeah.
so you
79
We
and
can
keep it in capital.
Yeah, keep
It'll
it in
stay in
capital because the
capital.
money's there, and with all this budget
Yep.
craziness, it's easier to keep the contractual lower than what it would be in a hosted environment.
It's unfortunate that it altered, perhaps some,
Yeah.
a different decision.
We were probably leaning towards a hosted environment, and then when we spoke with the vendors, they actually recommended premise for, they said with our size
Given our
and
situation.
situation, it probably makes more sense, and because we have the money in capital, we're leaning that way, so.
It's really unfortunate that this whole budget system from the state is really impeding.
Screwing
It
everything
really is, it's a mess.
I don't know, can I ask Bill?
Okay,
So
thank
go
you
ahead,
for that
Bill,
update.
hit it.
Alright, so I'm gonna ask for the $613 back in 52202. 522202, the professional. Those are for projects that we're working on with our storage environment, network storage environment, and our network switching. That's our backbone. I'm gonna give you back, the 7,000 here in 522204, that's actually comes out of 522202, that's a typo. So that should be on the line above that. So if you can restore the 7,000 there, that's really important.
7K needs to be moved to 52202.
Yeah,
To put it back in, not
to
take
put
it
the
out.
7,000 back in, but then reduce.
Yeah, it came out
It
of
came
the
out
wrong
of the wrong
account.
one.
Okay.
Oh, in
Yeah.
other words,
Yeah.
reduce
It's charged.
one.
Reduce 22202
By
by
7K.
7,000 less 613. Yeah, it came out of the wrong count.
So add back 613 and take out 7,000, that's
Right.
what you wanna
So
do in the
that's-
52202.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And then 556601. Where is that here?
$91.
6601. Yeah, I mean, give me more than that. That's a professional development seminar, so I can schedule the conference. You can have that. So that's 2,300.
Did you
Oh, so
request
drop that.
25,000
Is it 25?
originally?
Yeah.
We did request 25,000 originally.
Then.
So that is for development on classes, and so I negotiated with Maria to take that out and then leave the other one in under the in-service.
Okay.
So I
So reduce.
gave you back.
So we're
one.
taking out
25.
So we're gonna-
2509 we're taking out, dollars.
Yeah, 2209.
It says
2209.
2509 on our sheet.
Yeah, I'm gonna if I can keep 300 of that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, sorry. So I'll keep 300 of that. But you can have the rest of it.
2209
So
take
29.
out
2209 net.
in addition to the 91.
Yep. And then
So keep 2,300, is that what you're saying?
No.
Keep
300.
2209.
Keep
Take
300.
away
Keep
22.
Keep 300,
Yeah,
reduce
to
2209.
2209.
Sorry.
Get it out.
Okay, and you the 20,265. You can cut that.
The 20,000.
So the
Take the whole thing
yeah,
out?
I know. I'm trying to play nice. I'm trying to play nice.
20.
Wow, remove that.
You can remove that. I'd really like it.
What
but,
was that for?
So that is for Landesk training. So Landesk is a software that we have that manages our computer imaging.
That's okay, we're taking it out
patch
anyway, so you don't
networking.
have to, that's training, okay.
Patch networking, application updates remotely, remote access program. It would be really nice for us to have that, and if you're generous, you can leave that in.
Is there any like short, like this is a 5 day, is there like a 2 day? Or
It's a full week. That's the seminar, yeah. So we were hoping to have it in-house, that way all of us can attend it. All 4 of us can attend it.
Like have someone come here and show you?
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
that'd be fine, okay.
So, in light of the budget, we can do that next year. Just remember that. And the net there should be given back 21,861.
21,861.
So I get 927, I just raised it. 927, 140, something like that.
I'm a bad negotiator.
We remember you, Bill, we remember.
Or you're very smart, cause you
Yeah.
ask for a lot and then say.
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
I wish.
Right.
Any questions? You kind of
21,861.
did the job for
Sorry.
us. Sorry.
Took some of the fun out of it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
But thank you, Bill.
If you have any questions,
Yeah.
He's putting
Maria?
You need all your guys,
I
you
didn't
can't fire any?
yeah, that'll be nice.
I didn't come up with that.
The land desk you said was 20,000 what?
928, 140.
I didn't come up
The
with
land
that.
desk is.
I did 122.
950,001.
Request.
minus
20265,
20265?
20265.
Minus
The land desk request
21,861.
was 20,000,
It was 928, 140.
and then there was a munis thing for 1,000, so you can have that all back.
So
It
21.
was something different, Maria?
The total's
I'm coming up
20,265.
17,000.
20,265.
He
There we
had,
go. Thank you
he
so much.
put the plus 613,
You needed that.
wanted it back, and then he was taking 7,000 out of
But if,
that.
well, you've taken it out and
And
added
moving
the
it,
other.
so that nets out, right? And then he's taken 2209
Yeah,
out of professional development, then 20,265 out of
20,000.
Right, 20,000.
20,000.
20,265. So his net reduction is 21,861.
Bill, what's the vision
20,265
upgrade
plus 1,000 from Munis, I
Um,
think you said.
The vision upgrade we actually did Thursday.
I
Last
think
week.
he said 21,861 is the total.
It's
Yes,
the
you did.
vision server for
So
the
if I
tax
take
assessor.
950,001 less
we got it done this year
21,861, I
to
get
save
one-
the 7,000
928,140,
Okay.
right?
Something's not coming out. I'll work with.
We'll straighten
I'll
it
work
out.
with,
Okay. Yeah,
I'll
We'll make
uh,
sure we pass it by Bill.
I'll work
before
with Bill.
I'll
And
send you
give it
the
back
bill.
We don't
you
want to
guys.
pass a budget that's
Thanks, Bill.
messed up. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You know I'm just teasing you, Bill.
I know.
Love ya.
Okay. So I think library will be next. I don't see anybody else. You're on page 16 and 17 in the spreadsheet, page 331.
That's it?
Are you leaving? Bye.
How you doing tonight?
Looking good so far. I wasn't thinking I was gonna be here until like 9, so things have been moving smoothly. My name is Stefan Lynn Nielsen. I'm the new library director, and this is of course Louis Sheehy. He has been here.
He's been here
He's
a few times. He's been here a few
Tell how
times.
many years.
Yeah.
So the budget. Let me start at the easy part. We have a deal for you, as it were.
Wow.
No, there we go. Jeez, everybody's dealing tonight.
Let's do it.
Right now, we have a number of different cuts that are coming out all over the place, from our programming to our supply budget to our collections budget, which of course impacts all our databases, our books, everything that we have. And then we also have a capital outlay, which was a special request for furniture this year. I would like to move all of the cuts from 205, which is 406, 401, which is 729, program supplies, which is 6,183, and then postage, which was $9, and a maintenance account, which was $140, into the capital outlay, which is that furniture account, which would be a net reduction of $7,852 from the $11,000 that is already there. The furniture that we were requesting to replace, a lot of the library furniture that we have for the public, it was old when we got it. We have 2 chairs, two couch chairs that we received from a furniture supply store that were apparently hotel furniture from before we got them. So our idea was to try and replace everything in the building that we had, which was older and falling apart. That is still something that we might want to try and do, but we'll try for other avenues in that regard. As far as this is concerned, we would like not to hit any of our other discretionary areas and instead focus on the capital outlay.
Can you just review those again, please?
Certainly. Okay, so the $406 that was being taken out of program expenses.
Right.
which is $205. The materials and supplies was $729 from $401. $6,183 from program supplies, and communications postage $9. And although honestly I don't really care about $9. Then the $140 out of the maintenance field, which is 803, and that totals 7,852 combined with the 385 that was already coming out of the capital outlay, and so we're asking for a reduction there instead of the other department bylaw.
May I ask a question? Through the chair, the salaries, part-time, permanent, you requested 342,000, and the first selectman bumped it up to 355,000. Could you explain why?
Okay. That's the other part of my speech.
Oh.
Originally, we had a full-time position last year that was vacated back in December, and when this budget process started rolling around, that full-time position was changed into a part-time position to be distributed elsewhere in the town. So in lieu of that, our part-time staff would increase by one person. That, of course, has not happened yet because of the hiring freeze. The other increase that you see there is due to a 2.5% increase. 2.5% increase to the part-time wages that are calculated at the budget level.
And a wage adjustment too.
And a wage adjustment as well,
To
from
raise
$12
the minimum from 12 to 12.50.
Those together are $9,296.
Thank you.
Through the chair, how's your Sunday attendance?
Sunday attendance. Sundays are very popular.
Okay.
I will say, Sundays would be a great place to cut if we were thinking of this just numerically, in the sense that the way that we operate Sundays is that we actually have overtime apportioned into it, and that is how we, entice staff to go and work on Sundays. Unfortunately, as far as the public are concerned, Sundays are very popular. We are busier during any hour per hour of a Sunday than we are anywhere else.
Okay. You guys close in the summertime Sundays, right?
Yes.
What are your hours on Sundays?
We're open from 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
We also have a lot of programming that takes place during that time, and that brings in a lot of people on a Sunday.
I would think it would be more like 10 to 1 or something. I'm surprised that's in the afternoon for some people.
It tends to be something, I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but
traditional for church.
We have programs and concerts on Sundays. We pack up the auditorium.
That's great.
So.
Yeah, and it's only $8,000. Mess around with the library.
All right, any other questions? Thank you for.
Could you just repeat the second part? I didn't get the second part of your transfer that you had suggested.
The second part of the transfer from in regards to the
you were talking about the 7852 and the 140 going back to the capital line, but then you said there was another suggestion you had beyond that.
Well, okay. The other thing about it is that right now only my full-time budget is being impacted with the $30,575, and not my part-time budget of that basically has nothing out of it. I already lost a full-time position. It makes it much more difficult for us to operate, in the sense of making sure that we have enough coverage, night coverage, and things of that nature. If at all possible, I would prefer that to be, somehow worked out of either another part of the budget or at least include the part-time budget. that's a big impact just for one end of my budget, one end of the salaried staff to the big.
So you're suggesting moving some of that reduction to the part-time line?
Right. Well, for right now, I still have a vacant part-time position. And there's other places where there may be, places where we can make up the differential.
So is there a suggestion you have in terms of how much you'd like to move to that line? The part-time line from the full-time line?
The full-time, the part-time person that we currently have scheduled, that would be 12,082, is that right?
The new position, 12,152.
12,152. If we can move that from the full-time line to the part-time line, that would help greatly.
I think you want to do the opposite.
Sorry.
The 12.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. 152 from the full-time to the part-time.
Yeah.
And that would alleviate some of that strain.
No, it's from the part-time to the
full-time, yeah.
You want from the part-time?
The vacant part-time
The
becomes
vacant-
money for the full-timers?
Correct.
Okay.
So the full-time job reduction goes down to about 18,423. Right? So you're sort of splitting the difference. Okay.
There's also, we could reduce overtime by a total of, instead of the 796 that we have, we're comfortable reducing overtime by an additional 1,000. The overtime that we had was due to for also a full-time librarian who was there on Sundays in order to do database backup. We moved that responsibility to the IT department to increase the efficiency and operational aspects. Now that we no longer have to have that person there on Sundays, we no longer have to pay an increased overtime budget for it.
So did you want to move that to the full-time line as well?
To the from full-time. Sorry, yes, 1,000 from the overtime to the full-time.
Right, so take another $1,000 beyond the 796 out of the overtime line.
Correct.
And restore another $1,000 to the full-time salary line.
Yes. I apologize, Maria.
Oh, yeah.
I just think there are union implications that we need to talk about afterwards when we're moving all this money around.
Well, we'll give you like we said, give you like a spreadsheet. This one.
No,
so you
I
have
think
that
we'll
in
talk
advance.
about this after, but
Yeah.
the whole salary has to do with union contracts.
Oh, yeah.
So some departments are making it up within their budget. Other departments may not be able to do that.
Gotcha.
And also globally, I think Jim has to negotiate all that. So it's good that they're making the changes,
They're
but I'm
putting
not
it
sure.
back into
I'm
what-
not sure if you can do that through the
Okay.
union process.
You can do what, the restoring the cuts or making the cuts?
Or just moving money around.
Moving money around because he's got to go through the unions and globally negotiate with unions. You know, if some departments can't, they don't have enough money in their budget to cover their salaries. So are we saying those individuals that are also on the same union as someone else, are they going to be cut and someone else is going to be full?
Gotcha.
Restored.
You know what I'm saying?
You got bumping stuff.
So, well, that's another.
Well, we're talking about the original reduction from the Board of Finance, right? I'm just trying to understand
Yes,
what you're
yes,
saying, right? So
yes.
the fact that we're moving money around doesn't change that picture. It's the original cuts from the Board of Finance that we have to discuss with the unions.
Well, you're moving back, you're restoring
We're moving money
the
back,
salaries.
so it's making it easier, but it's to some of the salary lines, but.
We could talk about this after.
Okay.
Okay.
Just wanna make sure I'm
Yeah.
clear, yeah.
Within all the rules.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, yes.
Part-time wages, part-time
Yes.
increase and.
There's also we budgeted for the $9,296 for the part-time wage increase and the 2.5% increase. That was never removed from the selectmen's budget. I'm not exactly certain how that's going to factor in. As I understand it, there's not going to be any sort of wage increase anyways. But that's another $9,296 that was budgeted in the part-time account, which could then be moved to the full-time.
I'm sorry, how much was that, 9,000?
9,296.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That includes the wage adjustment from 2.5% wage adjustment and the part-time salary increase from $12 to $12.50 per hour. The wage increase was something that we were working on over a multi-year process. It started several years ago in lieu of the fact that our part-time staff were not getting paid a equitable amount in comparison to other local municipalities.
Right, anything else, given the lateness of the hour? Okay. Thank you very much.
Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The town attorneys were supposed to come today.
Just
But
say
I
you,
just asked
drought
them 'cause I
monitor.
didn't see
Just
them
type in
here.
drought monitor.
She said that they would have liked
We're
to
in
come
what's
Thursday
called
instead.
severe drought, but no
I guess
longer
that's
extreme.
not-
They wiped
sure.
out
In
the
the note.
extreme drought.
They're
They
gonna
still
come on
call it-
Thursday, is that what you just said?
Who's coming?
Town attorney is on Thursday.
Okay. It's here.
One quick question, on page 6 of the
Thanks, guys.
spreadsheet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What department is that?
Yeah, it is.
Totaling near the top of page 6 where it says total town hall.
We have no choice 'cause they-
And it says, first selectman, $1,675,944, and then there's a $5.5 million increase.
Yes.
What did I miss?
Oh, that's
It's
the
the
contingency
contingency.
line.
Yes, you look at-
okay.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
all
okay.
of, right, so that was,
Look
all
at
of
the
these
page before.
Got
line
it.
items were reduced,
Yep.
and then it was put in a
Okay.
lump sum in
I knew it was an
contingency.
easy explanation, but
Oh, good, I'm glad you gave me an easy for a 9:15.
okay.
No, I don't think there's
I
anybody
think we're
else.
done for tonight.
We're done for tonight.
I
Okay,
think,
the treasurer,
We're all done,
data
Maria.
statistics,
Well, let's get something else.
probate.
I think you guys told some of the
Probate
towns
wasn't
not to
come,
come.
didn't have to come.
No,
Probate
we're,
didn't have to
we're
come.
asking everybody to come because of
Somebody
the,
said town
Somebody said
clerk
that probate wasn't coming tonight.
and town clerk.
I wasn't,
What's
I
What's
didn't.
TR's budget? It
So
can't be that
nobody else is
much.
coming?
Nobody else
I don't think they did
Okay.
anything to it.
So we're done.
It's just paper and,
It
isn't
was
it
just
just paper
Sue,
and
The
Yeah.
judge.
postage
Maria,
and
just so
stuff
you
like
know,
that?
we had originally talked about that, but because of the special circumstances we have with this state cut, I think everyone, should have a chance to come
Someone told me
and
today, that's all. I
talk about it.
Yeah, and I
Those three
thought I heard
departments.
somebody say the tree warden didn't have to
The
come
tree
tonight
warden,
either.
the,
I'm not sure
tree
who.
warden, the judge, and.
Well, that was my
town clerk.
original email, but as I said,
tree warden
Carl
didn't have
sent
to
that to me out this morning at 8 o'clock, and I wrote back and said, well, I don't have any idea how I would contact the
Right.
committee between now and the rest of the morning. I said, these 3 people I don't need to see.
Well,
but-
just
But we
obviously
can
there
put 'em
was
back on the
miscommunication
schedule.
somewhere along the way.
Yeah,
so
I
they
just
didn't-
think as a general
If they didn't
rule,
come, that was
Okay, is the town still?
Yeah.
not their fault.
Yeah.
Are we adjourned?
We're adjourned.
Oh,
Motion to
Chairman
adjourn.
Wait a
wants to
minute.
do that.
Anybody want to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
9:14 unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay.
You did it by unanimous.
I just want
Thank
to
you.
let
Wait, I didn't
everyone
know
know
if the camera was
that.
still, is the camera still?
We're adjourned,
I guess we're
thank you.
adjourned.